Hi folks, and welcome back to another Travels of Red Rover. I'm Sean.
And I'm Corrine.
And where are we this morning?
Well, we're out on the sand dunes.
Here in Death Valley.
Yes, it's a weekend, so it's maybe a little busy today, but it's been a nice blowing wind for a day or so, and we thought maybe there'd be some nice features on the sand dunes here at the Mesquite Dunes near Stovepipe Wells.
And the light is just sort of getting perfect right now, so we need to get to work.
Yes, we do. Well, we were not the first people out on the dunes this morning, even though we left at dark 30. Off in the distance, we can see people who seem to have come out to watch the sunrise. Well, the sun has to come up over a good-sized mountain range there in the southeast, so it's not too early this morning that it will rise. Sean's been working on a couple pictures over facing the west, and you might just be able to see the sun hitting the tops of those mountains.
So what I'm doing this morning is I'm not so worried about the sand dunes themselves because there's no real light on them yet. They're kind of flat. So what I'm doing is using the really bright light out on the mountains there as my background, and then a series of sort of black lines that form in the sand dunes going out towards it. And then to balance off the shot, I'm using some plants on either side to make sure I've got a nice balanced shot. Very straightforward shot. I'm using a 2D, or I'm sorry, a 2-stop neutral density solid filter in the split density. Let's try that again. Yeah, it's too early this morning. So I've got a 2-stop split neutral density filter in the top of my camera. And Corrine says that's not what I've got in the top of my camera. What have I? Oh, I've got a graduated split neutral density. I got a graduated neutral density, 2-stop neutral density filter. Let's just try that again.
No, just keep going.
It's really early in the morning out here. I'm barely functioning. So anyway, I'm using a 2-stop split an ND filter out on the top of the camera there, and it's just taking down the brightness of the mountains so that I can fill in the bottom of the photograph with the dunes and the plants. So other than that, it's a very simple shot. ISO 100. I'm probably shooting at f14. And it's probably got somewhere between 1/2 and 1/7 of a second of a shutter speed.
Sun's just come up over the mountains in the east, southeast, and I have set up my camera along this ridge line here. As you can see, one side of the ridge is highlighted by the sunshine and the other's in shadow. I've fortunately found one without any footprints in it, so it's making a nice neat line going out there with just the ripples from the wind. So I'm shooting in this direction. I haven't needed a neutral density filter because I'm eliminating most of the sky from the picture. And so far, I can eliminate most of the people that are out here enjoying the dunes for sunrise. Way off in the distance, there was a sand dune that had 2 people standing on the top. They're walking down the side now. I thought I'd take 1 or 2 pictures of them off in the distance just to give a sense of scale to these sand dunes. So they've moved out of position now, but a short time ago they were standing on the top ridge, and there was enough brightness on the back mountain range that they stood out quite well as a silhouette. Often when you're shooting on an angle toward the sun, in this case I'm pointing east and the sun is to the southeast, you have a problem with solar flare or flare on your lens, particularly if you decide to use some graduated ND filters. So what I have as a handy tool is my baseball cap. And so when I'm setting up to do a shot, I can just shield the one side of my camera with my baseball cap, keeping it out of the picture, and it helps eliminate that flare spot that I'm getting. I'm working on a composition now looking to the west and maybe a little bit south as well. So my back is a little bit more to the sun. I'm not having to worry about flare quite so much. And I'm still working on the sand ridge on a dune. What I noticed about this direction is that the slope on the north side is starting to get a little bit of light on it, in addition to the bright light that's on the south side. And it's accentuating the ripples that are running across the top of the dune. So I'm using that as a texture feature for my next shot. Very simple settings this morning, and I'm mostly working at f11 ISO 100, and I'm using the kit lens, which is pretty common for me to use, a 24 to 105. It gives me lots of range. I've set up my camera in portrait orientation, and that makes the closer part of the picture look more dominant. And also I've gotten my tripod quite low to the ground, so I'm down here kneeling on my knees taking this shot. Starting to get pretty bright out here on the dunes. Sun's getting higher, so we'll probably wrap up shortly. I just came around to another angle of the far dune that I started at. What I like on this angle is there's a bit of a snaking S-curve going through the background of the picture for the shape of the dunes. And I have two dunes that are pretty well lit up on their peaks, so it might make an interesting composition with the shadows and the light. Here's the view out from my location, and you can see the sand dunes are really starting to light up quite brightly. I think the more interesting pictures are when you have a nice contrast of shadows and light. There's a little bit of that on the north sides of the dune. They're still in shade, and the south sides are brightly lit. So I'm looking at the contrast of the two, but it's almost getting too much contrast at this point, so we'll probably have to wrap up here soon.
Well, Corrine, what did you think of this morning?
It was pleasant. It's a good temperature out here. We didn't get too hot hiking out, and we were still dressed warm enough for standing still.
Yeah, I actually I agree with all that, and it was just an absolutely beautiful morning to be out here. But mostly, I think for me, it was a bit of a case of not being able to find compositions immediately and kind of being a little frustrated at the beginning. It actually took me a little while to kind of get myself organized and start seeing what was around me.
Yeah, Sean grumbled at me for ruining one of his pictures by putting my footsteps through the picture. Gotta watch for that when you're with somebody else, is stop and look around at the compositions before you traipse through the sand.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah, she did irritate me this morning because I was after a particular shot, and then she walked right through it and put big footprints through it. So anyway, I forgive her, but because I actually found a much better shot a little later on. And I think it was just kind of being grumbly about having a really hard time finding compositions.
But it worked out pretty well in the end, and I think that there's some pleasing shots. I wouldn't say gallery quality, but pleasing.
Yep, it's time to hike home and get another coffee. So it's late afternoon, and Karina and I are heading out to the Mesquite Dunes again. It's about a 1.5 mile walk across semi-loose sand, so it takes us a little while to get out there. But we're expecting to have a nice afternoon shoot, and we should be out there in about another half hour.
Well, it's another afternoon on the Mesquite Sand Dunes. Out here waiting for the sun to get a little lower. It's about an hour before sunset, but there's a large mountain range to the west, so the sun actually gets behind that mountain range by about half an hour before sunset. So we really only have about a half hour of light left.
So this is my first image of the evening, and you can tell by my shadow the sun's starting to set in the southwest. It's going to go about another 30 minutes or so before it gets down over the mountain. And as you can see, I've got a very simple photograph set up. It's a big creosote bush growing out the side of the sand dune and the top of the sand dune. And all that else that's added is the shadows and the waves of sand. And one of the reasons I've chosen this shot is because it's very simple, but also as the sun sets a little bit more, this will become quite golden and it'll turn out to be quite beautiful. The second reason is this is all pristine sand, so there's no footprints in it and things of that sort. And that's my preference, is always to shoot clean sand if I can. It can be a bit of a challenge out here at the Mesquite Dunes unless there's been a big windstorm the night before or during the day actually that you're coming out to shoot. Otherwise, pretty much the peaks are pretty much trampled down, and most of the ridges are trampled down. This one's actually looks pretty good, relatively speaking. There's a few footsteps up behind the creosote, but I'm kind of hiding those. And I also have a little bit of cloud in the background there. It may or may not show up in the shot. It'll depend on how dark I make the sky and how much sky I use. In this case, the sky is kind of pretty. It's a sort of a soft blue, and I may include a little bit more sky than I normally would in this shot. So anyway, just playing around with it. Oh, also, before I forget, one other piece of advice. When you find a shot like this, even though the light's not quite where it needs to be yet, I've taken a few shots because you never know when someone comes running up over the top of that sand hill and slides down my side. So at least I've got one or two in the can that sort of showed the image I was trying to get before the dune kind of gets ruined with some merriment on top. always surprised at how fast the sun starts to set on Death Valley, especially out in the dunes. So it was time to get busy and do some photography, and to do that we put the video camera down and focused on taking some shots in the various compositions that we had spotted. We hope you enjoy the photographs. Well, Corrine, how did you enjoy your afternoon shoot?
It was beautiful out on the sand dunes. It was very calm and quiet, but I'm not sure I found any compositions that I'm all that thrilled with.
Oh, well, I actually had a great evening. I think I found a couple compositions that really just spoke to me. They were extremely simple compositions, and although I had to hang in there for the light to get just right, I'm really pleased with them. I just hope I'm as pleased with them when I see them on the computer later on. But it was really nice. I had a really nice night.
Good. Well, we split up a bit, so it'll be interesting to compare our shots.
It will. That's always fun. We sure hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give us a thumbs up.
And if you'd like to see more of our videos, I hope you'll consider subscribing
down below. And as always, if you'd like to keep track of us, hit that little bell button.
You'll be receiving notifications when we post new videos. And we love to hear from you, so if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, please put it in the comment section down below and we'll try to respond as soon as we can.
And until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now.